here on the right-hand wing, which means that I really do have 365 degrees vision.
Appropriately enough for a car programme, Top Gear has seen many changes in direction, and the presenters have always had their views of where it should be going.
It was a general programme, I think, far more general than it is now, in that it had a lot more to interest people who were interested in motoring, rather than people who, who kind of want, toys for the boys and speed machines.
You have to open that door to reach in and open the back. It's logical, really, isn't it?
I was a bit of a contrast to Angela Rippon, who I got on with really well, but had a slightly school-mum approach to her presentation, and maybe I was seen as a bit of a wild card because I had longer hair. I mean, recently, one of my daughters saw a clip of something I was doing in the late 70s and rushed in and said, "Mum, come quickly, there's a girl on the telly who looks like Dad."
I remember seeing the programme with Noel, and it seemed to have a kind of very loose journalistic feel to it. It was all very much vroom vroom school of motoring journalism. I mean, I can drive this red one faster than you, and about the shape and colour of cars so much. I mean, I found that is not the sort of journalism I'm interested in, so it wasn't one of my favourite programmes, I must admit.
My earliest recollections of Top Gear was of this rather technical programme where you had people who would put their arm on their legs up on a wheel like this and be expansive about bits of cars.
This little car here really completes the new Lancia family.
I used to put my foot up on the bumper of the car. I used to remember what I was talking about, just to break up the formal line, make it more informal.
And they'd walk around with maybe a carburettor or a fuel injection pump in their hands, and it was an absolute cure for insomnia.
I remember watching, I think it was Sue Baker, driving an M635 BMW in the south of France. And everything was perfect. And she kept going on about how the trip computer was too far away.
And I'd like to see that moved up nearer to the other instruments.
I was thinking, well, yeah, I suppose if you look, it might just be too far away, but it's a 286 horsepower car and it's the south of France, just enjoy it.
It's all very easy being wise after the event, but how did they all make their mark when they first stepped in front of the camera?
This year, 1981, the pundits expect around 1.4 million cars to be sold. The point is, when you turn up to the car showroom with your hard-earned cash in your fist and you drive off in your shiny new pride and joy, would it have crossed your mind that the car could have spent many months standing round in conditions like this? Well, I was quite angry, and it's always easy to be, relatively good in doing a report if you're angry about something. And I think we physically changed the way the industry regarded their new car stocks.
Chris Goffey broke his leg in an accident and he was supposed to drive this Formula First racing car.
Top Gear said, well, carry on, do the series, but we won't show your plaster cast. We won't show...
So the item was actually Chris standing on a plastered leg saying, here's the Formula First, and we've got our pet racing driver, Tiffany Dell. And I just drove the car and spoke as I drove round, but never took my helmet off for the entire item.
Clearways, turn, oversteer in and power on. And that was almost exactly as I'd like to do clearways in this sort of car.
That was dreadful. I'm surprised they still kept me on.
I'm as nervous as I am excited, which I think can't be too bad.
I was racing, which was great, in a Mark II Golf in the Slick 50 Championship down at Brands Hatch. So not only did I race, but I also had to do in-car commentary whilst racing.
Come on, Vic, come on, babe, go, go! Yes, he's on the grass. OK, we've done him. Come on!
I'm sure there are quite a lot of cuts on the floor that didn't make it in.
I was really lucky because my very first item was actually a Ferrari, which was quite fantastic. I remember it being incredibly cold. That's an abiding memory of Top Gear. You're always incredibly cold. But the experience of driving a Ferrari, I guess it's rather like your first real kiss, it's something you never really forget. I have to say, it's only afterwards it struck me that if I'd put the thing around a lamppost, it would be a rather quick end to a career, I suppose.
Well, the original reason they wanted me on Top Gear was to do kind of consumer investigative stuff. But Watchdog were really doing that better. So they wanted somebody to be naked more often. My first piece, I was in a sauna. Then I went to do limousines, and I was naked in the back of the jacuzzi. And then the full big frontal, which was the nude classic car show, which was so funny because everybody, even the film crew, had to be naked for that.
I've got you.
Morning.
under my skin.
It was the first time I've been thinner than the rest of the people there, because you know what Americans are like. And I thought that was going to be great for my career, but now I star in porn films, which is what's paid for my car here.
Despite its Brummie roots, the series always spoke with a distinctly southern accent. It couldn't last.
And in 1993, as in 1923, BMW continued to offer an air-cooled, horizontally opposed, shaft-driven motorcycle. And this is it. I thought, I'm on the BBC, so I better speak proper. And I do a telephone voice all the way through the item. I think a lot of people would be surprised, but I kind of stand next to this mic and go, hello. Today, a motorcycle test of the new BMW. And it's just really weird. I don't know what on earth I was thinking.
Such a prat. I should have stood like this, talking in a very monotone, frightened way about this Bentley, with an idiotic tie on and a stupid blazer because I was trying to look smart.
It's been converted into what's called a two-door coupe, i.e. it has one long door on either side. And that means there's pretty substantial alterations between here and here.
The most difficult thing is your hands. Suddenly they become huge marrows and you have no idea what to do with them. It's this, Christ, look at this, where do I put these? Here, here. You've no idea what to do with your hands.
I've got a crooked smile, I wouldn't disagree with that.
My head's always, I've got a twitch on all the time, and I never know what to do with my hands.
The cat became very famous. That's because my hair started falling out, but don't tell anyone.
I walk funny, and it has been pointed out.
I don't really know if people have said anything to me. Apart from Nigel Havers said I had a nice arse. You can't use that.
And sometimes things got even better than that.
Well, it's not actually a car. It is a Jaguar, but it was when I went up in the Jaguar jet plane. But we were racing against Tiff in an Aston Martin, and it was just the most amazing, magical experience I've ever had.
Okay, time to go, go, go!
The Aston's pulling away.
No, he's getting away from me. No!
120, 130. Easy peasy pudding and...
See ya, sucker! Eat my shit,
But one of the most fun things that I did was driving on one of the skid pans. It was a terrific experience learning how to cope with a car in a skid, which probably saved my life on a later occasion.
Because if I actually found myself in that situation, out on the road in a skid, would I react in that way?
I hope that you will hear my voice saying off gas, if nothing else.
I got so cocky. I was taking this thing around and actually skidding it and finishing absolutely right on the spot because we just had so much, and I got really quite good at doing it.
And that was me making a fool of myself on the skid pan.
The best Top Gear experience, there's no question for me, was they had this mad idea to train me as a racing driver. Now, I'm the last person to be a good racing driver. So it was a terrible decision in some ways, but it was absolutely fantastic, because when would I have the opportunity to do that?
Down we go.
Oh, no! The feeling of adrenaline, the feeling of being part of something like that, I shall never forget it as long as I live. And I guess that really takes me into, in a sense, the worst experience on Top Gear, because, of course, sadly, I failed to qualify. And I cannot tell you the disappointment, the feeling of letting everybody down, Ford, who'd given me the Fiesta to do, the team, Top Gear. It was just a complete unmitigated disaster.
Worst Top Gear moment, that's easy. It was an item that we did called Siamese banger racing, where you race a banger car, but you're chained together with another banger racer. I went with Jeremy, he was like the co-driver, he was in the other car, and we said, look lads, we're a bit feeble and a bit television, we're not going to get it right. So can you leave us alone for like 4 laps before you start hitting us and destroying us? And laps must have meant seconds to them, because by the time we got to the first corner, we were just smashed to pieces.
I have no steering at all now. So there we go. Andy, over to you, mate.
And then we got rammed up against this wall. And I thought, oh, God, we just had to sit there for the rest of the race, where they'd come around the corner and they must have thought, oh, it's those two, we'll just hit them and then we'll carry on. And I got this car right up the back of mine. And this last one hit the car so hard that it put out 3 sort of vertebrae in my back. And it took my head off and my arms off and everything. And that was horrid.
There is only one answer to that, and that was when I was entered in the Reliant Robin World Championships at Milden Hall in Suffolk, this 20-lap race in these amazingly tatty three-wheelers. The producer told people to keep away from me, otherwise there wouldn't be a TV programme. And of course, on the very last lap, they all went for me. I got banged and bumped, and the car actually turned over twice. Subsequently, I met Prince Andrew, and he said, "I know you." He says, "Reliant Robins, absolutely marvellous."
And I think that's what made Top Gear, the fact that it went from a reporter standing next to something that was happening and reporting on it to people actually involved in the thick of the action. And we went to the Goose Fair at Lincoln to do a piece about the Wall of Death. Now, before I went, we'd established that I wouldn't be able to have a go, because the thing about the Wall of Death is that they generate an incredible amount of G as they're going round, and you have to acclimatise to that, and it takes months. And right at the end of the day, the chap said, "We've thought of a way for you to have a go." So I had to sit on this bike with my legs dangling down by the side of the forks on either side of the headlights, and round we went. The funny thing is, the guy has got the impression that I actually enjoyed it, but I think it's one of those things that you do once in your life.
Undoubtedly the best car experience was driving the Aston Martin Bulldog. It was a one-off, which they of course said was going to be one of a limited edition, but there only ever was one. Very fast, phenomenally fast. I think it was at Woburn where we tested it, and I crested a rise to meet the camera, but the camera wasn't there because there was a herd of cows in the way, and I just missed all this beef and the camera. And the poor man from Aston Martin just did his underwear in mega fashion, and they then abbreviated it very quickly and said, "Get the long-haired twit out of the car, we'll do a lot of statics and whatever." But it was a great car to drive.
This moment, for me, is the realisation of a 30-year-old dream. I am going to get to drive a GT40. Oh, no. Oh, please, no. The trouble is that the GT40 is so named because it's 40 inches tall. We need to find someone who's less than that to tell us what it's like.
This is quite simply the most beautiful car in the world, which is why I've owned GT40s on and off over the last 15 years.
Ah, lovely. Sometimes I drive it like this with no clothes on, and that's really fabulous.
One of the items that I really remember and really enjoyed was a special one that we did celebrating Roger Clark and my 25th anniversary of our win on the RAC Rally.
I've actually found my old winning overalls here, but regretfully they won't fit. But Roger Clark and I still fit in here perfectly. Come on, Roger, let's go.
Slow down. And I thought we were just going to go slowly around the forest, and I think the guy that owned the car thought that as well, but we gave it a real good airing, and it was really enjoyable.
Oh, I see you haven't lost any of your sideways style.
Well, the Escort just happens to do that when I get hold of it.
And Roger Clark, who was our greatest British driver, he's very sadly died just 3 months after that programme went out, so it was a very fitting obituary, if you like. It was a wonderful programme, and I shall keep a tape of that for the rest of my life.
I won my first ever rally with Tony Mason alongside me, so I've had some competition out of Top Gear. But I suppose the one thing that really happened was I drove Alain Prost's Grand Prix winning Ferrari Formula One car when Jeremy was in the F50. And I suppose for special occasions, you can't beat that.
The F1 car wins, of course, but you'd be amazed at how close the F50 gets. Right up to 160 miles an hour. There really isn't that much in it.
The sun would come out and you'd be in a Ferrari and it wasn't yours, and you didn't have to pay for the tyres, and that was just, you know, the best feeling in the world.
I think unnamed Top Gear presenters have always gone mad about Ferrari and eulogised about how wonderful they are. I fundamentally disagree. I think they fart and bang and they break down. They're ridiculously expensive. They're badly built. You need a mechanic in the boot. They're far too wide. You get done for speeding. You drive 200 yards down the road, and I cannot see the point of them at all.
People always remember the McLaren F1 supercar, and still remember the look on my face when I hit the throttle for the first time. And also the lovely shot of sort of wheels spinning out of the chicane, and you know, I did 2 laps of the Goodwood racetrack, and everybody still remembers the McLaren F1 item.
You have the failed racing driver who, desperate to prove that he isn't a failed racing driver at all, would sometimes just put us into a car and then try to kill us. A number of directions there, Tip, all in one go.
Well, I had to get away, didn't I? So, fool them.
He made that thing dance. And even if I practiced for 1,000 years, I couldn't drive like Tiff does. And it's funny, because you can go and talk to other racing drivers, Damon Hill and people, and they will actually say, no, we can't drive like Tiff does either. I know of no one else that can do it, that can make a car slide for as long as he does, at as high a speed as he does.
He is prodigiously talented in these balletic routines with motor cars. He is the only person in the entire civilized world that I know that can do an 18-second power slide and then stop, bang, absolutely exactly in front of the camera with all the badges on the wheels pointing the right way up.
Okay. It's breathtaking to watch and pant-wettingly frightening when you're actually inside it.
I need a lavatory. I need a lavatory now.
It wasn't just Tiff's passengers who suffered from involuntary bladder control. For the motor industry, the debut of one of their new cars could be just as nerve-wracking.
A classic for me was when I road tested a Fiat Strada. Very exciting car. I just remain staggered that anybody in the late 70s, early 80s can come up with a design like this, because I think it is positively ugly. And it was just the biggest heap of that you've ever seen. Altogether, I'm not 100% knocked out with this, as you've probably been able to tell. Personally, I don't like the paint finish on this individual car. There's some wires hanging out from around the dashboard, so I wasn't very impressed with the way in which it was delivered. And I really went for it. So much so that the following motor show, I walked onto the Fiat stand and was physically removed. I mean, I was just, you're not allowed here. You're the one who knocked the Fiat Strada. And anyway, I'm around longer than the Fiat Strada.
In the early days, it was very, you know, softly approach, you know, to car company. We mustn't upset anybody, you know, anti-BBC. I think one of the turning points, I was a Range Rover owner, and I loved the Range Rover dearly. And I'd been to the Turin show and said, it's crazy that they don't have a diesel. We went back next year, and the turbo diesel Range Rover was there. We took it out into the foothills round Turin, and it was pathetic. I've changed into second. I've got my foot flat on the floor, and we're not going anywhere. I've got to come back down into first. And again, foot flat on the floor, you can hear the turbocharger whine as it increases and builds, and suddenly we've got power, there. I come into second gear, the turbocharger falls away, my foot's flat on the floor again, and the Range Rover just isn't going. And Land Rover went berserk. You've never seen anything like it. And the managing director at the time complained to the Director General of the BBC about our unfair report, you know, criticising British industry and, you know, holding back exports, and all hell broke loose. And bless his socks, the Director General backed us and said, well, if that's what they think, that's what they're entitled to say. So from that time on, we took a very hard line.
I mean, you know how the ads go. It's come home at night to a real fire. Well, I like to go home at night in a real car, not a Toyota Corolla, I'm afraid.
It wasn't so much that they were bad cars to drive, it was the difficulty of thinking of anything to say about them.
It's just so anonymous, just another shape on the roads, and not even a particularly attractive one.
And there's nothing to say, it's grey, it's drizzle, it's spam, it's just rubbish. And I've run out, and the Vauxhall Vectra was another case in point.
Now, I know it's a replacement for the Cavalier, I know, but I'm telling you, it's just a box on wheels.
You just knew that that car had been designed by someone in his coffee break. Oh, bloody hell, I've got that Vectra to design. Oh, well, you know, lunch in a minute, right, and then there we are. There, that's fine, that'll be cheap. If you're enthusiastic about cars, and the car manufacturers don't make an effort. That's annoying.
We soon knew, Jeremy and I, that the way to the viewers' hearts was to take no prisoners, was to shoot from the hip. And at that stage, there were an awful lot of very lacklustre, very mediocre cars.
And this is our point, that the old Metro has all the finesse and the subtlety of a thumb in the eye.
The following week, I think we got 300 letters from outraged blue rinsers who had happily lived their lives with their little Metros chugging down to the hairdresser.
And don't expect any rushes of adrenaline from behind the wheel. This driving position comes straight out of a double-decker, and for a bloke like me, the dinky little seats would keep an osteopath in work for months.
And after that, we just went for everything, hammer and tongs.
Every single bump causes my head to thump into the roof. Why does the roof have to be so low? Why do you need a sunroof in a car that's got air conditioning? Answer me that. Preferably before my skull cracks open. Ow! Oh! Ow! Ow! Ah! Oh, that's better.
In the fiercely competitive and crowded world of 4x4s, is the Frontera any good?
No, not really. Well, they're actually pretty hopeless and I wouldn't buy one. Why? Because they're dull to drive, hideously slow, not that well made, and a teeny bit common.
So I'm afraid as far as the 9680 is concerned, it's thank you, but no thank you. At £30,000, it would be just fine, but at 40,000, it's starting to play games with the big boys.
The managing director of Renault France rang up Renault UK and said, I want you to teach those Top Gear people a lesson. I want you to take all our advertising away from the BBC. And of course, anybody laying claim to a level head, not the French, no, there is no advertising on the BBC, so that stuffed him.
The crossest I've ever been with myself was, I borrowed this little Peugeot 306 when it first came out. Well, I don't think this is Peugeot's best effort. It's not ugly, it's just a bit boring. And I want to know this, who chose the colour? Stevie Wonder? Engine? Oh, brilliant, it's got one. And as I was driving home, I was thinking, actually, it's quite a nice little car, this. I was so angry, it was too late to do anything. But it's always stuck in my head. I just feel like I want to go to France and publicly apologise for it. Oh, my track record at getting things wrong as far as the market's concerned was unbelievable. Toyota Corolla, world's best-selling car. Did it with the Ford Escort in '92, terrible, it's a dog. That was Britain's best-selling car. And then there was stuff like the Renault A610. I said, you've all got to have one, it's just fantastic, it's wonderful. And they sold 6. So I did misjudge it. Well, weakly, I was wrong and hopeless. But the Peugeot was the one that I got technically wrong. And that was sort of the one that hurts most of all. Being out of step with people is not something that worries me unduly. Just being wrong about a car is amateurish.
But not all our boo-boos made it onto the screen.
We were doing a shoot once in South Wales with these guys that I'd met, and they said, you must come down and see us. We all own Honda Fireblades, the ultimate sports bike of the day. Lovely guys, most of them in the 40s, some of them in the 50s. What a bunch of hooligans. They were terrible. They were like a gang of sort of overexcited lads. And at one point, this car pulls up and this elderly chap gets out, and he's not happy about this pack of bikes that's been riding around all day. So he has a bit of a rant and a rave, and we're all very apologetic. And at the end, he says that he's a personal friend, a very close and personal friend, of the chairman of the BBC. So we said, of course you are. And he got back in his elderly Ford Fiesta and toddled off into the distance. Anyway, about 2 weeks later, the producer said to me, I've had a letter from the chairman. And it turned out he was a close personal friend of the chairman of the BBC.
And it was disappointing sometimes when I once said, my Jag would give Douglas Bader cramp. And the producer said, you are joking. And it gets taken out. And you're quite cross because you think that was an hour of pacing around my room, but it's his job to produce and know where the line has to be drawn, and it's our job to get us, or presenter's job, to get as close to that line as you possibly can, sometimes step over it. It's a very relaxing car to drive. Indeed, the last time I was this relaxed, baby oil was involved in the equation.
This is for every time I've got you dawdling at junctions. This is for every time I've found you doing 4 miles an hour on a motorway.
is payback time!
And on top of all that, it's the first Ford that I can remember which looks good enough to snap knicker elastic at 50 paces. Every morning for 15,000 miles, I've slipped it into Waftmatic and cruised around in a paragon of good taste, silent running, and utter invincibility.
Rough times are all in the past!
Eat lead, Fritz.
Intertwined between what we could call the sex and violence are some very socially aware pieces. We've done things like drugs and driving. We've done things like the cut and shut industry. We've done items on not buying an accident write-off. But if you really want to quantify the success of our consumer pieces, just look at this issue about buying cars abroad. There isn't a single person in this country who doesn't know that new cars are villainously expensive in the UK compared to the rest of mainland Europe. And we started to beat the drum, 2.5 years ago, and then everybody picked it up. Every media has actually run the story. And that is a direct result of us actually doing consumer items.
So Top Gear has come of age, and to give us time to recover from this riotous celebration, we'll be back on air on January the 20th. Meanwhile, we'll leave you with Chris Goffey's top tip for Christmas.
This is the latest in car phones at £1,350.
I mean, dodgy beard. I mean, you think mine's bad. He's really in bad hair territory.
My beard was big and brown, I think, yes.
It was a bit hairy, but certainly a lot of fun.
We're on the Col de Turini, 5,000 feet up in the French Alps. It's midnight and there are 6,000 people here. Oh.
I'm not going to hit the wall. If I crash a milk float, I'll never live it down. I mean, never.
To put that up, you just take off the tonneau cover, do that. Ow! Ah! I hate this car.
We're shining brightly. I don't think there's too much doubt.